You're a natural, Ed. That's a very good introduction. Go pour that glass of wine, and you've given me a nice introduction, but I could be a little bit rusty back from having baby number 3 months ago exactly. And I apologize for any potential background noise, either from her or any of the other two mongrels in the background. But like Ed said, thank you everyone for joining. And Nicky, it's great because you're actually early, because we were planning on having the trainers joining us a little bit later. We're going to get David and Jane to kind of set the scene and give us the talking points, the big stories, the big names heading into the week. But it's brilliant to have you here already, and I'm glad audio issues are sorted and we are set for the preview evening. And I'm actually really excited because, unlike probably all of you, I haven't been in like Cheltenham mode full on for weeks and weeks and weeks now. So I'm really looking forward to learning all about next week, what's going to unfold, who's excited about what. Obviously, I have been following that one big story that, Nicky, you're probably a little bit fed up of now, Reconstitution Hill. I'm sorry that he's not going to make the festival, but I hope he's okay, and we will see plenty more of him in the future. Jane and David, what are these? Cheltenham preview numbers 15, 20?
Number one for me. I tend not to do them. Yeah, I mean, I don't get asked to do many, and I don't really push to do them. So yeah, this is the one and only for 2024.
We're very honoured. Okay, well, great. Well, we're going to get all sorts of pearls of information from you. How about you, Jane?
I'll be honest, I'm in the dungeon of an Irish pub waiting to do another one upstairs. So that kind of tells you all you need to know. It's you know what it is? By the time I have these done, all of the homework is done. I can actually go to the races next week. This time next week will be a quarter of the way through the festival. And I'll have all my homework done just from listening and talking. Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. You get to prep your own mind and then get information from all the other panelists that you come across. But I've read a little bit on the Racing Post and hearing people talking how they get quite annoyed that we still don't really know which horses are going for which races, and there's too many options and small fields and too many races where there's like odds on favourites, and what Willie Mullins has got kind of favourites in 14 of the 28 races. What's the general vibe going into the festival this year?
For me, the general vibe is, God, we love traveling across to the UK to hopefully beat you guys. That's what we want to do. We'll just paint the picture.
We're ready.
Nikki, I know you're gonna have, if anybody's gonna put it up to us, it's the winning most British trainer, which is Nicky Henderson. But yeah, you get the feeling from the minute you get on the plane or wait at the gate of the airport, everybody's asking what tips they have and what they've heard, and it's like we had a great time in the rugby, but we didn't win the World Cup. We're gonna win the Presbytery Cup, but it's just a question of by how far.
Yeah, that one. Oh, hello. Oh, hello.
I know, I'm getting riled up now.
I like it.
The second night running. I couldn't hear you last night. That's why we've got a problem tonight.
No, you were only holding yourself back. See, Nicky and I did a preview last night, and he was very well behaved because he couldn't hear me. Now I'm getting him riled up.
What was it I saw? Who's going to have more winners at the festival? Willie Mullins or
England.
Or the UK?
England. Yeah, exactly. So come on, Nicky, give us the good fight. How are we going to repel the challenge?
Submarine in the African Sea. Something like that. I've no idea. I mean, we've been watching it all going on. We're honestly, all we've got to do is try and look after ourselves at the moment and make sure our horses are in one piece. We're not actually doing a terribly good job at the moment by throwing things away, but you know, it's always good fun. But it feels a little bit like there's a little posse of cowboys sat in England watching these great big herds of Indians come over the hill, and it's a big invasion, I have to say. We can only do our best. I mean, my boys were saying tonight there's only, I think Sir Gino's only one of 3 English favourites or something. Well, that's terrifying.
2, I think it is, isn't it?
2, you don't make it worse, David. Yeah, I mean, it probably is, yeah.
I feel like that's one of them. Has Paul got the other one? Is it Ginny's Destiny? Is the other one David? Who's the other favourite?
That's a good call. I'd say you're right.
That's right.
My little bit of research I've managed to squeeze in today between squawking children. Okay, so it's not looking good for England for the Prestbury Cup. Dave, how
But you always win. You always win more races than we expect. We've never won the Ultima. Willie Mullins has never won a handicap chase at Cheltenham, even though he has a number of favourites for handicap chase at Cheltenham. You guys will win more than we're going to give you credit for at the moment.
Okay, well, I like the fact that you've mentioned the Ultima, because that is going to stay at home, and hopefully it's going to go the way of a certain Apple Away. And Ed Seifried said before we all came on air that it looks like she is going to get in to the Ultima. And I'm not sure if you know which way bread is buttered, Jane and David, but presumably she's your pick for that race, yeah?
David, you take it away there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a massively open race, as you would expect. The Ultima. Apple Away is certainly an interesting one, isn't she? Going into handicaps, she's a Grade 1 winner over hurdles. I thought that I'd be very interested to know what Lucinda thinks about her progress over fences thus far, because I would have thought maybe that I'd stand to be corrected, but I'd think maybe Connections wouldn't have been looking at the Ultima when she started out, but she's certainly a mare who's got a big upside over fences, and she's a definite player here. I thought the Goffer of Gordon Elliott's might be one that could run really well for Ireland. But yeah, I mean, just to return to your first question, Francesca, it is it's an interesting reflection of where we are now. I think that 12 months ago, Willie Mullins had 6 winners at the Cheltenham Festival 2023. Nicky, am I right in thinking that 6 was your total a few years ago with Finian's Rainbow? And
well, he had 7 actually that year.
He had 7, right?
Yeah.
So it's a measure of where we are. That 6, I think, was probably an underwhelming total for Closutton 12 months ago, and it's one that I imagine, I mean, they've got odds-on favourites in 3 of the championship races, and it's again, I mean, Willie Mullins would never admit this, because trainers always say one is after one winner at Cheltenham, but I think that if he did return home with 6 and no more than 6 on Friday night, then they would probably view that as something of a disappointment.
Okay, so there is a little bit of a danger that it's been overhyped, and the whole kind of assumption that Willie's just going to win everything might not materialise, although the Dublin Racing Festival was a bit of a case.
I will say though that Gordon Elliott didn't run his big guns at the Dublin Racing Festival, because he was planning a different route, and I do believe Apple's Away has a great chance. Again, Lucinda can make the case, but like, she's a Grade 1 winner, she's got class. I think she went too fast the last day and paid the penalty. I fancy Grey Dawning for the Turners, so that Warwick run is a good run. She's been keeping very good company. Like, her first run this year was in really hot water. I'd say that this might have been a plan.
And I feel like, again, we need Lucinda to put us straight on this, but I feel like the more testing conditions, the better for her. What are we looking at? They've had a lot of rain, but it's now a drier week going into the festival, right? Nicky,
I'll leave that to you guys.
We had a spot of rain last night, but amazingly, in the last just 48 hours of decent weather, it has certainly dried up. It's still very wet. I know, talking to John Pullen earlier last week, he was a bit worried that the grass was growing and it was difficult to get on the track, but I know they've managed to sort that out. It's been mown, and we've certainly dried out a lot. The forecast for the rest of this week is very good. So I think you could be, let's hope we could get somewhere near good to soft ground, which would be lovely for everybody. Nobody wants it bottomless. I know some horses do, but let's face it, to be fair to everybody, a bit of good to soft would be fantastic. And just, if we can keep that rain away now, I think there's a chance.
Okay, good. Well, as you probably gathered, this preview is not going to be quite as formulaic as some. We're not going to go through every day, every race, talking about everyone's fancies. I think we need to kind of keep it moving. And I think we've talked about the Ultima already. We could have a quick look at the field. I think we've got a graphic of the field for the Ultima. And if anyone else wants to give us the case for other horses we can. Here I am ruffling through my notes. Nicky, have you got Excello and City Chief in there?
Yeah, Excello I'd be quite keen on. He's only a 5-year-old, but he's very good at what he does. And he was impressive over 2.5 at Ascot. Does like a good cut in the ground. And I think his last run, that ground was just quick enough over it for him at Cheltenham. And over 2.5, he just was run off his feet a little bit. He does everything right. He is a tad young, yes, but he is, touch wood, a very good jumper. He'd probably on City Chief. He's possible. He's in the Kinmure as well. And as you say, there's going to be an awful lot tonight where horses are double, treble entered. And obviously we don't know. I might be confusing you some places, but Willie's even better at it than I am.
Okay. Anyone else with some more thoughts on the Alta?
I think somebody's written in there, Jungle Boogie. He's going to run the Gold Cup. The Gopher and Meeting of the Waters are the two top of the market. The Gopher was 4th in the race last year behind obviously Cork Rambler and Faster Slow, and I'd be very surprised if it turns out to be as good a renewal as last year, considering what those horses have gone on to achieve. I would imagine there might be a change of ownership on Meeting of the Waters before Tuesday, and he could very well go top of the market if he isn't there already. So he's the one for me.
Okay. Well, the other race that we have got a graphic of in terms of the runners, that's obviously the Ultimate at 250, but we have got the Champion Hurdle, which is happening at 3:30. Obviously, the race has changed complexion somewhat since Constitution Hill is not going to make it. So, State Man favourite. Do you guys see him as the logical winner, or do you see any danger? Is it a more competitive race now that Constitution Hill is not there, or not?
No, definitely not.
No.
It's a huge shame that we haven't got Constitution Hill. Obviously, State Man, his only defeat over hurdles when he's completed was in last year's Champion Hurdle. We know that he's a horse who, I mean, if Constitution Hurdle were not, if that mating had never taken place, we'd be looking at a horse who would be unbeaten every time he stood up. He's a top class horse in his own right, and he's only just been kept in the shade by Constitution Hill, hasn't he? So it's an interesting talking point as to, I presume, Jane, you and I were talking earlier on today. It seems as though Lossiemouth will probably stick with the mares on Tuesday, which is, again, we've talked earlier about the Cheltenham Festival, what it means, and the fact that Connections will go for a so-called easier race. I'd love to see Lossiemouth in there. It's really instructive, is it not, that the highest rated horse over hurdles in Britain is dear old Not So Sleepy, and he's 12 years old, and no horse of that age has ever won the Champion Hurdle. So, I mean, I don't know. He's building society odds, State Man. I think he's a best price 5-2 on. But I mean, it would rank as now that Constitution Hill's not there, it would rank as one of the shocks of the festival, probably the biggest shock of the festival, if he were not to win.
So it's not really a betting race, Jane?
I tend to agree. Look, I thought it was an insult when it became apparent that Constitution Hill was a doubtful runner, that everybody went to get State Man beaten, even though the only time he's been beaten in open company is by Constitution Hill, and that's not exactly a disgrace, is it? He's absolutely bomb-proof in terms of his mentality. He's so laid back. Paul Townend can ride him any way he wants. He's trouncing everything that they throw at him over here, and he's doing it in an unassuming fashion that you can't really predict what's under the bonnet. They're adamant that he wasn't at his best last year, and I don't care if Lossiemouth runs here. She won't beat him. And this is a question for Nicky, actually. Irish Point has been trained all year for stairs, and on the back of Constitution Hill coming out, they've switched them back to 2 miles. So I'd imagine surely that's a difference in training. Not necessarily, obviously the horse has a very good ability. He won at 3 miles at Leopardstown.
But surely there's a different pace to that race for him, for what he's used to, Nicky.
Yeah, you'd have to agree. I mean, I can't recollect how many runs he's had over 3 miles. Has he?
He's been racing at 2.5. His last run was at 2.7 on heavy ground at Leopardstown.
Yeah. Okay. What, at the WMRF?
Yes, at the WMRF.
He's not a horse I know very well, I must admit, but I just, so it comes to me, I mean, you could see why, Gordon probably wants to have a crack at that. You could obviously see Willie would be fairly keen as much as Richie to keep Lossiemouth and the favourite apart for the time being, or for the sake of the festival anyway. I know Rich would, he'd said straight away after, I mean, the only question is 2.5 miles, and 2 miles, she'd be an absolute certainty in the mares. So the only question mark is that. So State Man really shouldn't have anything to be very frightened of, to be honest.
Somebody wrote in there looking for an each way shot, Francesca, and Tony's on at 4-1, which I admire. Echoes and Rain, she'll run here. She'll be ridden for a place. She's very keen, so she'll probably drop in last. Danny Mullins will ride her. She's been following him around all year at home, and she may well pick up each way placing if there's 8 runners, which is a big if.
Well, I think there's a point here, because what you'll find is as this field gets maybe does become a bit bigger than it looked it was going to be, there are, as you say, going to be runners lurking in there looking for the place money. And to be fair, we've been doing that with First Street all season in the Christmas hurdle and the Unibet hurdle. And he's picked up some seriously good prize money, finishing 3rd to Constitution Hill, 3rd to Lossiemouth. Now, actually, he's going to go for the Coral, but Lucia will run in here. And I mean, she's a very good mare, but she's not a grade 1 mare, probably. But again, she's going to be fishing in the waters, looking for, shall we say, 3rd or 4th prize money. He'd love to get 3rd with a mare to get a Group 1 place. It'd be lovely. But there are going to, probably quite a few are going to come and do that. And how they're going to ride them, and as you say, ride them for 3rd or 4th place. They're not going to be competitive, which makes the race look a bit different again.
I'm conscious of the time, and we need to keep moving things forward. But I should ask you, Nicky, about Jericho de Repenay. He goes for the Supreme, does he?
He does. Yep.
I read somewhere that you wanted potentially to go for the Bearing Bingham.
No, I think he's only in the Supreme. We never put him in the Bearing Bingham. But I don't know. I think he's always looked pacey enough. He won his first 2 races very easily. Had to get a bit messy, if you like, at Doncaster, but the forms turned out to be very good, so I wouldn't be worried. We think he's sharp. I mean, this again, the 2 novice hurdles completely depend on Willie, which way he's going with what. Ballyburn is obviously the number 1 there, I think. Which way does he go? We're going to bump into him wherever we go. So let's worry about it when we see where he is. I keep talking to Ronnie Bartlett every day. We chat a lot and great mates. I don't think he even knows which way he's going. So let's see. I mean, I think a lot does hinge on him. He's probably one of the certain bankers, I would think. Seems to be one of the Irish bankers. Got to take him off.
Is it a relatively new thing, this whole kind of waiting to see who goes where, or is it a consequence of these mega stables? I mean, I was actually trying to count Willie's entries for the week, and I got through Tuesday alone, and I got to 47, and then I gave up counting. So we're actually going to put a poll up in a minute. About should there be a restriction on the number of horses any one trainer can have. I mean, I know it's a conversation that's been had, and it's potentially quite a difficult one to implement. Whose phone's ringing?
Mine, and I can't switch it off. I want to switch it off because if I answer it, it switches last night it switched the whole game off. I've got you back. Good.
Okay.
I don't know how to switch it off. I don't know how to switch you on, that's for sure. Don't mean that.
So we'll put that poll up in a minute, but it's quite an interesting one to think about. And I know Martin, I saw in the chat, also raised that question. But is that why? Because we've got so many stables with so many numbers that everyone's kind of waiting to see who goes where, or is it because there's too many options of races?
Two reasons. Too many options of races, and Willie Mullins has never made up his mind before he needed to, and he's never had so many horses, and he's never had so many horses that matter. So every year he controls the whole chessboard, and you're a little bit like I saw Dan Skelton say with Grey Dawning, he was going to go wherever Factifile didn't. And you know what? I think that's a wise move.
And I was quite interested today listening to Nick Luck's podcast that I know David and Jane, you're both regulars on, about Harry Derham saying his horse, he wasn't going to take it to Cheltenham. He was going to go for a race, Fairy House, was it? Because they'd rather win a race rather than being a participant in a race that they think they can't win because on ratings they don't have the right to be winning. But that's potentially another interesting poll question. Like, would you rather be competitive but not winning at Cheltenham, or do you want to be going somewhere where you can win? What do owners say these days?
That's a very interesting and pertinent point you could put to Paul Nicholls, Francesca, isn't it? That, you know, it's amazing to think that at his pre-Cheltenham press day this year, he said that he wanted to send a small but select team to Cheltenham. Now, of course, you know, if we wound the clock back to 2007, 2008, 2009, the two Quarto Star Gold Cups and the Denman Gold Cup in between, he was having runners that were in the mid-30s in terms of volume over the meeting. This year, probably he'll send about 12. So probably just over a third of the squads that he had a decade and a half ago. And, you know, he will say now that Cheltenham isn't the be all and end all. I'm not sure he actually believes that, but it's an indication of the fact that if he thinks, and obviously, Nicky, you and Paul are perennial rivals for the trainers title, if he thinks that there's an opening at Aintree where maybe some of the Irish runners won't go, that's where he's going to send some of his horses. So yeah, I think that it's very much the case that, like, Nicky is really one of the he's about the only English trainer these days who is capable of not turning back the Irish tide, but at least stemming it. But you know, it's the options of home-based trainers these days are either go and get beaten by one of Willie Mullins or probably look elsewhere. As if by magic.
Oh, here we go. The rest of the panelists are joining us, and actually, I've done a terrible job here because we're meant to have spoken through the big races on each of the big days, but we haven't got past Tuesday. It's always the way, isn't it, with only an hour to do this in. But it's good to see you, Paul. Hi, Peter, as well. Paul, how has today been?
Obviously, it was a bit of a tough day. And incredibly hard day, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
All my team are like, I've gone down to the alley, and I'm going to join them in a minute. It's been a hard day, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm sorry. That must be.
That's right.
For all of you. Probably not what you feel like doing right now.
No, but there we are. Life goes on.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it does. But thank you for joining us. Peter, how are you? How's Lucinda?
Yes, very good. She's stuck on the way back from. She's on the way back from Newcastle. Yeah, sorry for your Paul. It's awful, but as you say, I don't know how it puts it all into perspective. Sometimes, if there is any perspective on it all, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you think you skill all the falls we had over the years, and you know we survived, and poor old Keegan had one fall and it ended his life, and it just puts the whole thing in perspective. Yeah,
and I'm not saying, gosh, I understand, or it happened to me, with the poor boy Campbell Gillies killed, and
yeah, exactly.
It never leaves. It's a funny thing, but it unites the yard in many ways. But that's not exactly. A good thing. That's not.
Well, you're right. You're right. It is right. It's sad, but there we are. We've got to move on.
I'm sure Keegan had a great send off.
Yeah, it was an amazing day, and there was 400 odd people turned up to pay their respects, and just shows how high regard he was held with all the people from the racing community, the point to point, and his family. it was one of those days. So anyway, but we're going to move on, and he'd be proud of what the whole team had done, and we have a winner at Cheltenham, it'll be with his name on it.
Well, it probably feels a little bit trivial in context to be talking about Cheltenham and winners and all of that, but we were just discussing how your approach this year seems to be to have a select team, but with plenty of good chances, with more of a focus on running horses that you really think can win rather than just making up the numbers. So your total numbers would be roughly how many?
Possibly 14 maximum. 12 or 14 if they saved it. But, I've learned over the years, I've been training 32 years now, and I've learned that you don't go there just for a day and waste runs. There's a lot of good meetings left till the end of the season. If the horses aren't good enough to win at Cheltenham, then no point being there. Trying to have a select team that can go well, and then the others go elsewhere, and it's worked well for us, and we'll carry on doing that.
Yeah, we were just discussing that. Is that what your owners are telling you? Are they saying, look, if we don't think we can win, we'd rather go somewhere else where we can win?
But look, everyone goes on about Cheltenham. I'm champion trainer, very lucky position being. I haven't got any owners at all screaming to go to Cheltenham. The horses are good enough. Yeah, we love to go, but they also like going to Aintree, Ayr, Sandown, Cheltenham. There's plenty of good meetings left. You've got to run the horses where they can win, not just go for a day out and just hope they're going to run okay. You can ruin a horse's career in one bad run in a competitive race at Cheltenham when they're not ready for it or they're not capable. So you have to try and be selective and run horses who've got chances. Great for Willie's got 70, 75 horses, can run 5 or 6 in a race. We're not all in that lucky position to be able to do that. I don't know whether it's a lucky position or a position that I necessarily want to be in, but I love selecting a small team of horses that I think have got a chance.
And Peter, would you and Lucinda be going into Cheltenham this year with your strongest team so far?
I echo Paul's sentiments in so many ways. Look, we're sending 4 down. Sounds pathetic compared to everybody else, but we've been very fortunate in the last 2 years to have a horse good enough to win in Corach Rambler. So, you win once there, and you want to go again. Again, that there'll be horses we've missed there. That we targeted Aintree very much last season with horses, and it worked. I think we had 2 winners and 2 seconds at Aintree. But to go to these big festivals and the big meetings is what it's all about. So again, it's what Paul said. I feel that we're sending 4 down, 3 with very reasonable chances.
So how are they being deployed? Apple, we think, is getting into the Ultima.
Well, yeah, Apple may not get in the Ultima. We'll see tomorrow. She's also got the Kim Muir, Corach Rambler. Don't sound to be arrogant, but that's a Grand National prep for him. The Gold Cup. I don't want him carrying too much weight in the Ultima, so I thought I'd go for the Gold Cup with him. And if he was placed in the first 5 or 6 in that, I'd be delighted. And then we have Giovinco, who was behind Paul's Stairway Fay at Sandown. And, Stairway Fay was good enough to win a Brown Advisory. And I thought if we could get him in a handicap, I'd be delighted. And then Ahoy Senor, he's been a magnificent horse for us. And probably falls just short of a Gold Cup class. And he will run in the Ryanair.
Okay. Who are you most excited about seeing?
Gosh, it's funny. I don't know how Paul sees it. Up here, we battle through the weather a little bit, majorly, and then suddenly it gets this time of year, and you see the horses blossoming. I feel all 4 of them have blossomed well. I think Apple has come well to herself. I think if I could get Apple hasn't performed to the level I had hoped she has. Perhaps I haven't placed her very well. I got it wrong. Paul and I were actually talking right at the beginning of the season. It was a novice chase at Worcester, and I ducked it, and the ground came right, and I should have run her there really. And I've always just been behind with her, and I run her in races that she shouldn't really have run in. But she's had the experience now, and I thought if she got into a handicap, she's good enough to take on Stay Away Faye around Aintree last year. I know Stay Away Faye had probably used most of his energy at Cheltenham, but it was still a very good run, and if she could come back to that form, she'd run very well in one of those handicaps. Yeah.
And I'm asking this with very little knowledge of your world, but is there part of you that, if you had the time again, would you have always gone chasing with her this year, or would sticking to hurdles have been an option?
I will look after this. It's funny because I have a Hoyseneur who people say I should have kept hurdling, but I've always felt he should have. He's got his jumping together. He's a big horse. Apple, I'll see. You've got to have a try. I've got into the season now. She hasn't jumped badly. I thought she perhaps would jump slicker. So she may turn, and I have to speak to everybody, but, we're into the season now. She's got, she may still, if she won at Cheltenham, and, she still may have an outstanding chance in the Scottish National. If she did that, that would be, it'd be a good season. She's done nothing wrong, correct? This time last year, she was, I think she won that mare's graded race off this time last year, but before that she was 117, 118 mare, so she suddenly came for herself. So the season's not over yet.
Okay. I feel like we should try and go chronologically a little bit. We have discussed Tuesday quite a lot with Nicky, and we've just heard from you, Peter, about those ones in the Ultima. But Wednesday, I think we've got a graphic for the big race of the day, the Queen Mother Champion Chase, and we can have a look at how that one is shaping up. And Nicky, you've got John Bon in there, and I read a quote saying that it's good that Edward Stone's now going there because he'll make a nice pacemaker, because they're deploying him differently now, right? Like, he looked good last time, I thought, going out in front and making it, like, dictating the race. But obviously El Fabiolo is one everyone's got to beat, right?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the only thing, Edward Stone did jump out the gate at Newbury, caught everybody a little bit unawares, and got a nice cozy lead and put about 10 lengths in his pocket. I'm not sure. I think everybody's thinking he's going to make the running. If he does, he's not going to get that sort of lead freebie. The rest are going to be aware to what he might be doing. I'm not so sure. I don't know. I know Alan very well, and it's probably not his usual tactics, pacemaking. Not pacemaking, but front running. I wouldn't think it's an absolute certainty that he'll go on. It'll be very interesting. We'll only know at the start, I'd say, and see what Tom's going to do. I mean, we're expecting him to. I think Nico's just quietly thinking, I wonder if he will. If he does, then we get a lead. Thank you.
Jane, do you think
If we don't, I don't know what'll happen.
Could this be more competitive than the market suggests? El Fabiolo,
I have a lot of respect for Edward Stone, but I think the younger horses are going to improve past them if they haven't done it already. And for me, it's El Fabiolo's race to lose. I have a lot of respect for John Bon. I don't buy into the fact that people have said he's a bad jumper. He's not a bad jumper. He just was completely off the last day. And even when you go back to their novice hurdle days when they met at Aintree, when El Fabiolo had only sauntered around in the maiden hurdle and more, there was only a neck between them that day. And with natural progression, if any of you guys are at Cheltenham or have seen him, go to the paddock to see El Fabiolo. He's huge. And it's only now, I can honestly say, he's furnished. He's a strong horse. He's a better horse than we saw win the Arkle last year. And the Arkle record is 7 of the last 13 have won the Champion Chase in the following year. So I'd love to be clever and tell you who's going to beat him. I think he wins. And if somebody wants an each way angle, again, it'll have to be eight runners. But Captain Guinness picked up pieces last year when Rachel Blackmore rode him for a place and he was second. The last 2 Champion Chases have fallen apart because the pace was really hot. Shishkin pulled up. There was a couple of things went wrong, and that can happen. So just, if Captain Guinness is going to be a massive price on the day, a few shillings each way mightn't be a bad investment.
Okay. I'm just going to put up the poll question if we've got it there, because it could be quite an interesting talking point, and I think it might be a yes or a no answer, or maybe you write your answers in the in the chat bit below. But the question is basically, should there be a restriction on the number of horses any trainer can have? And maybe it's a bit of a moot point because there's no way of doing it. But there is an example in Japan where JRA trainers can only have a maximum of 75 horses in their string. They can have 30 boxes, and then horses spelling and coming around again. But I'd just be interested to know from everyone tuning in what they think, because does it make it boring having concentration of so many good horses in so fewer hands? Does it make the racing less competitive? Is it all tied in with the small field numbers? And I think also from a stories point of view, like when you're following, like I found this season, I've been following a little bit ad hoc where I can, trying not to nap in front of the TV on a Saturday afternoon after a sleepless night with a newborn. But do you lose something in not having that variety of trainers, etc.? So everyone have their say, and we can come back to that later. There are so many horses and so many races that I want to ask everybody about. Okay, that's interesting. So far, the majority say no. Great. So that's that one. Anyone want a word on that? Nicky?
Yeah, I hate it when us as racing knocks our sport. I'm nearly as old as Mr. Henderson, not quite, but we've watched racing evolve, and Paul and we've watched racing evolve. Look, we are going to the festival and probably watching. I argue with Lucinda, who says, she won't have Arkle, and she just thinks Cato Star is far better than Arkle and stuff. But the quality of horses we're going to go and watch there are probably higher than we've ever seen before. So instead of knocking it, let's appreciate it. That's what we want to see. Jane's just said, Willie's horse in this Queen Mother Champion chase is a fantastic looking individual. I mean, over the standard of horses, my father won a Gold Cup in '57 with this, there was selling hurdles in the race. I think they'd won a 4-year-old chase round there or a selling hurdle round there. The world's changed, and we've got magnificent quality horses going to Cheltenham. Let's appreciate them.
Okay. David, from a journalistic point of view?
Well, from a journalistic point of view, this is particularly poignant because of the passing of Mark Bradstock a few days ago. That this is 2015 Coneygree, and it was one of the magnificent stories, I think, in Gold Cup history. Obviously, Nicky, that was one of Nico's first signature races, really, and he acknowledged at the weekend that was a race that had helped build his career, and that Sarah and Mark were instrumental in supporting him. And there's absolutely no doubt that if at the Dublin Racing Festival one had asked Willie Mullins after he'd won the 7th of the 8 Grade 1s, not after the 8th, because obviously that was the first time that anyone had won all 8, but it's essentially the law of diminishing returns, isn't it? And there's absolutely no doubt. I don't like, personally, the idea of restricting trainers to a number of horses or entries. I like to see excellence rewarded. I don't like the idea of restrictions. But there's no doubt that it's that we're in a difficult situation now. I think certainly one of the things with the Cheltenham Festival and the 28 races, I think that certainly the BHA and race planning should look at converting a couple of those races at least to handicaps, because I think that they're more engaging from a punter point of view, and I think they're more engaging also in terms of writing about it. Last Saturday, we had the Moor Battle Hurdle, which over the last 25 years has had 2 incarnations as a handicap, 2 incarnations as a conditions race. 13 of those running since '98 were conditions races, and there wasn't a single double-figure field among that. The biggest number of runners was 9. So I think that's something that we should look at for the future. Okay.
Back to Wednesday and the Brown Advisory. I'd like to hear from Paul about Stay Away Faye. Second favourite there. How's he going into that race?
Yeah, very good form. He worked nicely at Kempton the other day with Quebecois. He scored well a couple of days ago. He's had a great season, really. He won at Exeter, he won at Sandown, he ran very
He's
well.
a bit lucky at Sandown, Paul.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm only joking.
No, I don't. He ran very well at Sandown. I mean, he looked like he was going to be jumping the pond fence, but he races a bit behind the bridle and it stays on strongly. Ran very well in the Cotswold Chase, and that race won't be lost on him. He's improved massively since then. I'm very happy with him. So, yeah, I prefer the race was on the new course, which is a bit more emphasis on stamina on the Thursday and Friday, but it's not. It is what it is. I'm glad to hear the Twiston Davis horse is going to run in the race because that'll help tow him along. Great chance. Harry thinks it's one of his best chances of the week.
Okay, good to hear. I'm keen to move on to Thursday, but does anyone have trainers? I know Nicky's got a few in the Coral Cup, and it looks like Paul, you've got potentially a few in the Champion Bumper. Does anyone want to give us some steers for those races?
Just on the back of Paul there, I have a lot of respect for Stay Away Faye, and I love that he took on horses in open company last time, but Fact to Foil is the best novice chaser in Ireland, and if Stay Away can beat him, Paul Nicholls will win another Gold Cup next year.
Good. Okay.
Well, that's very confident.
No, I'm very confident in Fact to Foil, so I'll be very impressed if you can get near him.
So why is this a good? The last time he's never run over hurdles. He's going to go to Cheltenham, which is one of the toughest courses and the most. It's a hard course to win, experienced horse. Why is he so good?
Because I suppose he broke the heart of Gaelic Warrior 3 furlongs from home at Leopardstown.
Gaelic Warrior doesn't go left-handed.
Okay, that's a valid point.
Is that not right?
I would be of the opinion that if you compare the 2 times of the Grade 1 in open company, the Hartwood Paddy Power handicap chase of the same distance at Leopardstown, he was eased down and his time compares very favourably. I like the horse, clearly. Your horse is a bit more experienced. He's Cheltenham experience, he's Albert Bartlett experience, but the fact that Fact to Foil is 4 to 5 at the top of the market ahead of your horse just suggests there's a lot of confidence behind it.
I think it's because of who he's trained by. They're all favourites.
You're Paul Nicholls.
Yeah, and Willie Mullins is Willie Mullins, but at the end of the day, he's a smart horse. But obviously, from what I keep reading, he's the next Gold Cup winner, so it's going to be hard to beat. So let's bring it on, and we'll do our best to try and beat him.
Exactly why we're here. Love it.
Exactly.
I'm liking the sparring. Okay, so going from one of your best chances of the week to maybe an even better chance of the week. Paul, Ginny's Destiny in the Turners on Thursday. How are confidence levels?
You can never be confident about any race at Cheltenham, but he's won 3 from 3. He's probably got a higher rating than Stage Star going into the race last year. Harry actually thinks that Stay Away Faye is his best chance of the week. I actually think Ginny's Destiny probably is one of our best chances of the week. Depends what turns up in all these races, as you know. He keeps improving. He won very well the last day with 12 stone, the same race Stage Star won a year ago. Again, I think this race could cut up quite a lot, actually, looking at the entries on it. He's fit and well, and yeah, lovely chance, I hope.
Okay, and it could be a good day with Stage Star and Hitman in the Ryanair.
Well, look, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have chances like that. And Stage Star won the Turners last year. If I hadn't run New Year's Day and at Christmas, he probably would be favourite. But he's very good, fresh. It's almost like his first run of the season. Very happy with him. If it dries up and it's good to soft ground, he doesn't want extremes. He doesn't want it too quick. He doesn't want it too heavy. And Hitman's a funny horse. I never had him right last season, even though he ran 3rd in this race. He had a wind up just before Christmas, needed the run at Cheltenham on trials day, ran very well behind Shiskin the other day. 25 to 1, he's a massive each way horse for people who want a horse to be placed. He'll run well.
I think we got a graphic of the field for the Ryanair. If we could just put that up so we get an idea of who's meant to be heading there. What have I got here? Hang on, let's get the right day. Stage Star, Hitman for Paul. The Hoisenor. Is the Hoisenor quite big at about 25 to 1?
Hasn't performed well this season. He was in front of the Gold Cup last year. He obviously has to come back to form. He's a good horse on his day. Whether he's good enough to win, I don't know, but he's a good horse on his day.
Okay. the other one that interested me on the Thursday is Joyeuse in the Ryanair Mares Novices Hurdle, a half sister to Epatante. Obviously, these things that I'm only just learning, having looked at it properly today for the first time. But tell me about her, Nicky.
No, she's we're going to have to sidestep the whole bit for the time being. She could be a very good filly. No, she's not. She's not going there.
Oh, okay.
No, sadly. I mean, to be fair, I don't know why she's in there, because she's been out for a couple of weeks ago. 3 weeks, I'd say.
Right. Well, there's me.
She will be good. You'll hear about her next year.
Okay. And in the Stayers Hurdle, Champ and Bolden together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Champ, why not? This is an old boys' race. No, it's not. It's it. I mean, again, we've got to see what actually comes in here and who might sidestep it for the champion hurdle. But no, Champ's going to appear just because he likes going round with Paisley Park, and they may as well have another battle. I don't know why we just can't have a 2-horse race with them. Let the others have another one. It's all good fun. I mean, Champ would love it. He would be very sorry to miss the party, so he's going to run. I would just might put some cheek pieces on him. Made a difference here.
Yes, I was just having a look through. There's a few old boys, aren't there? Half of my screen's, and hang on, can I move that? Half of it's a clip.
Are you talking about Nicky? That's a bit unfair.
Excuse just said that.
Twice you've been called old. Very, very, very unfair, Nick.
Yeah, but annoyingly, we haven't got the ages, but even I know you've got between Paisley Park and Champ and Dashel Drasher. He's quite old, isn't he? How old's Florian? Yeah. He's been quite good in this race before, hasn't he?
Florian's been around 10 times, yeah.
This could be quite a good race, right? From a viewing perspective.
Let's ban 8-year-olds then.
Oh, right. Have the older division.
Yeah.
Let's not declare this the veterans race, because the favourite is around 7.
How do we say it, Jane? Chupo. It's apparently it's an island, but sure, you'd have to be. Anyway, we wouldn't be holidaying in Chupo. Fun fact about him is that any time he's had a break of 50+ days, he's won, and that's happened 8 times in his career. And I was surprised, a little bit disappointed, when he won the Hatton's Grace back in Fairyhouse, beginning of December, that they just said there and then straight to March. Like, that just represented everything that I hate about Cheltenham, but I love about Cheltenham. He's going to miss all these good targets through Christmas, Dublin Racing Festival, and come straight here. But the confidence is incredible. For me, he should be chasing a double. I thought they rode him too cold last year, got beaten, having ridden him too far back. His rating of 161 tells you all you need to know. He's a worthy favourite. I'm led to believe for Loring Porter is coming here. Some guys were messaging in there asking whether he was going to go to the National Hunt Chase. I think they've basically made up their minds. They're going to come back here. He was fourth in the race last year after an interrupted preparation. He's got a better preparation this time. And Gordon Elliott said Sire de Burley is flying, but he's 12. And yeah, there's a lot of variables, but worthy favourite for Chupo. Is Noble
and
Yates?
I think Irish Point is running in the champion hurdle now. So that changes that.
Is Noble Yates interesting in there?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, yeah, actually Robert was here this morning. I didn't really ask him, I must admit, but he had to sit and suffer and watch Champ work instead. Yeah, I would think he's almost certain to go here, isn't he? I mean, he should do on what he did at Cheltenham the last time. I think he's well entitled to. The only thing I was wondering with Chiapu, I mean, is he not a bit like a good wine and doesn't travel terrible well?
I'd say he should have won last year. That's just my opinion as a 6-year-old.
So the only time he's been to England?
Yes.
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll forgive him that then. I thought we'd see
once.
1, 0 out of 1.
In terms of the championship events of the week, it's the race of the meeting, isn't it? I mean, you know, we might not be talking about inflated numbers for the winner, but it's a really competitive race. I mean, it's interesting with Noble Yates that he was getting £6 from Emma's horse, whose name has come out of my brain, Paisley Park, and Champ, and
they were only 4 or 5 legs behind him.
Yeah, I mean, in Paisley Park's case, just ahead. So I mean, although that he's 12, It's really interesting. Thought that Sir Gerhard was a horse who still might be interesting in this over hurdles. I think it's a really interesting one, but I must admit, I agree with Jane. I think that Chupo arguably could have and probably should have won this 12 months ago. And just that the statistic about this horse after a break, of course, it's disappointing that he has one run and the trainer says, let's go to Cheltenham. But the way that he performs when he's fresh, I can completely see why they've chosen to do this. And I suspect it's probably going to work.
Before I move on to Friday, has anyone got anything I've missed on Thursday?
Just on the Mayor's Novice, Brighter Days Ahead, they talk about her in glowing terms, Jack Kennedy and Gordon Elliott, and they're not usually effusive in their praise, but the mother's bred 5 runners, of which they are Indiana Jones, Mighty Potter, Caldwell Potter now, Paul Nicholls, French Dynamite, and she's the 5th, Brighter Days Ahead. They're all black type winners. There's 2 Grade 1 winners amongst them, and she's arguably the most exciting. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her. And if anybody has any interest in the handicaps, I know the way you're thinking in the Kim Muir. Go back and watch his run behind Ile de Camp and Gaelic Warrior at Limerick and tell me that horse isn't well handicapped.
I like the way you're thinking. Good. Great. Okay, some good tips coming from Jane for Thursday. Right, so Friday, I might actually go on Friday if I can face 4 hours there and 4 hours back in Friday's traffic. We'll see. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to enjoying it or on the telly with a glass of wine or 2. Right, so let's start with the Triumph Hurdle. So Gino is the banker of the week, correct or incorrect?
There is no such thing. Not even Willie can find a banker. Look, I mean, actually, to be fairness, I don't mean this wrongly about Willie, but actually, how many times at the WMRF did he actually run 4 in the race and not win with the favourite? It just shows it's not all black and white. That's why you can afford to run 3 or 4 in the race. You cover yourself. So Gino at the moment, yeah, okay. So that they had the biggest opposition. This side seems to Burnett Road doesn't. Can't follow in. So there will be plenty of opposition. I think that, the race in Ireland, the Leopardstown race, didn't show anything outstanding, but I bet you there are a few to come out of that. And Willie's Armour is he's got a stack of them. So there's sure to be one. He probably hasn't run it yet. You never know. There are plenty here. Paul's got a couple. They're very good. So he's got to be on his A game. His A game was at Cheltenham, and that was impressive. He impressed me. So, and his work's been great. He was very good this morning. So I think the work's done really, and let's hope he's our obvious best chance. If you know what I mean.
How about yours, Paul? Liari and Golden Move, is that correct?
Yeah, Golden Move, just where I start now. He got beat at Taunton the other day. He's not even going.
Right.
The other lad, Liari, he's won 3 out of 3. He's rated 133, I think he is. So he's got a little bit to find with Nicky's horse. I do wonder about the race at 134 Liari. He's unbeaten, keeps winning. He's okay. He's in the Boodles earlier in the week, but I think he could end up top weight. The race at Cheltenham, I have to question a little bit in the fact that the favourite, Bernadette Road, who was obviously smart, he underperformed. He's got injured. The third horse was dropped £10 and runs in the Fred Winter, so that tells you something about that. He was very impressive, but that race may have been a weak little race. It just flattered him a little bit, so it gives us some of the others of us a bit of a hope to perhaps take him on.
Paul, would you favour the Triumph for Liari over the handicap?
I've got to think about this seriously. I'm not convinced I want to run with top weight, but he still runs off his handicap mark, whether he goes 10-10 or 11-10. The best juvenile I've got, I think, is Khalif de Villiers, who won at Kempton the other day, but he's going to go to Aintree, so we took him out of this race. And Liari is unexposed, and in fact, he can't do more than win 3 from 3 and keeps on producing. I could be tempted to let him take his chance on Triumph. He's a flat horse. That's what you need, I've always thought. I mean, Nicky's horse is very much like Khalif Ballet. He's a national hunt bred horse. He's never run on the flat. They haven't got a great record in the race, and the flat horses do tend to prevail in this race. But he's obviously the one to beat.
I'm conscious of us running over time, and we did promise a bit of a Q&A session at the end. So I'm sorry for kind of rushing through, but let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup. Shishkin in there for Nicky, Brave Man's Game for Paul, Correct Rambler for Lucinda and Peter, I think. But everyone's got to beat Galopin des Champs. Is there a way of doing it? How are we going to approach it? Who wants to go first? Nicky, what are you going to do with Shishkin? He's been quite entertaining to watch this season.
Well, he entertains us most days too, as you can probably imagine. No, he's great. He looks really, really well. Newbury bought him on quite a lot, actually. And, you know, I mean, it's been a funny season. Some of it's been his fault, mostly it hasn't. And I think he's got a little bit unfairly tagged. I mean, we went into Newbury, it sounded like he was an escaped convict. It been appalling, but he hasn't. We had one blip at Ascot, and Paul will say thank you very much. But he was very good in the King George for his first run of the season. And whether he'd have won or not, we could go on all night. But I think he probably would have done, but he sort of crossed his own legs. It was just one of those stupid things. And even so, you still got to say that was going to be a very, very strong run. He took it up a long way out. He pushed the race along. He was jumped beautifully. Newbury was great. That was him. He finished very strongly. And we come in here in I think, very good shape. But it's going to be very competitive. It's a very good open Gold Cup. There's one boy at the top, Galopin. He's going to be hard to beat, yes, but the rest are all, it's very close after that. And they all deserve to be there. I think it's a very good race, and it'll be one to savour. And I hope we're in the mix when they swing for home.
And the market's got Shishkin at about 9-1 and Brave Man's Game about 20-1 last time I looked, but it probably shouldn't be that big a difference, should there, Paul? He should be a bit shorter than that.
Well, I'd probably agree with that, even if I'm sure Paul will, but I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think 21 is best each way, better than meeting. I think he's shortened up a bit. I think he'll end up a lot shorter than that on the day. But he was second in the race last year. He split fast or slow, Galopin Champion, Punchestown. Probably hasn't had been the best placed in his 3 runs before Christmas. It's just the way the ground and the things worked out. He ran very well in King George. Wherever Shishkin would have finished, he would have been right on his tail. So there's not much between those two horses. I actually think, I might be wrong, that Galopin Champ is one we've all got to beat. And I think the race involves really Brave Man's Game, Shishkin, and Fast or Slow. I think they're the best 4 horses in the race. And I think we've all got it to go to beat the favourite. He's very smart. He's been impressive this year. That we ran very well last year. I think we've got a great chance of being placed.
David, do you think it's a race that captures the public's imagination? Is it one for the ages?
I do actually, Francesca. I think that, you know, I agree with everyone else that Galopin des Champs is the horse who's in pole position. But I think that, I mean, last year, it was very much a race of 2 halves from his perspective. He got close to a couple. He overjumped a couple in the first half of the race. And then in the second half, he was brilliant. If he doesn't come up to market expectations, I think it just blows it absolutely wide open. Obviously, Fast or Slow's beaten him twice. I'm really interested to see how Shishkin gets on. You know, as Nicky's pointed out, much that has been written about this horse this season has been negative, but there's absolutely no doubt that he's got that star quality about him. If it came up really soft, I think that the likes of Jerry Colombe and L'Empresse would be interesting. And if it did dry out, I would say this because he dropped Lucky for Me in the King George, but on good ground, I think Hewick would have a chance. And we talked early on about the need for sort of human interest stories. Well, I mean, a horse who cost 800 quid would obviously be a story that would everyone would want to write.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like you can look at these races on paper and be like, well, that's the best horse, and that's the defending champion, and that's trained by Willie Mullins, and on paper I've got no chance of beating the favourite, etc. But you look at a race like the King George where all sorts of things can happen, and Hewitt comes over the top of them all late on, having looked beaten, 3 or 4 furlongs out. So that's what makes it interesting, isn't it? Tactically, Jane, who can do what to try and get the favourite beaten?
Yeah, that's a really interesting aspect of it, because last year Paul Townend, he got right of the year. He actually missed the start, and he kind of got lucky that he was riding a horse with such an engine. I don't expect he's going to miss the start twice. I'd imagine he's going to jump out on the pace, and the only obvious real front runner I can see is the real Whacker. And I don't know, with all due respect to the real Whacker, how long he'll be able to lead them. I went down through, does anyone of 6 horses here, if they won the Gold Cup, you'd say, yeah, that horse is a good winner of the Gold Cup. This is a proper race. I sat on a panel with Martin Braswell during the week, and Martin's a target trainer. Okay, he has one goal in mind with this fella. And there's definitely more to come than when they met last time. But I just can't get past the faster slow of a very reasonable mark got beaten by Commander of Fleet in the Coral Cup. And I have a lot of respect for Cork Rambler, but he got beaten by him in the Ultima last year. Can I see him winning the Gold Cup this year? He's second favourite. I can't see it happening. Nicky Henderson, you can hear me, yeah?
I can indeed. I'm waiting.
This is going to hurt, man. This is going to hurt. We've been on this preview for the last 2 years. 2 years ago, this horse contested a champion chase. Last year, he contested a Ryanair chase.
Put some food.
We're in the Gold Cup, man. Are we too late?
No, I'm the one that's too late. Excuses, I'm too old for this. But it just taken me a little bit too long to get to the right trip. But it's been very cunning, to be honest with you. It has been very cunning. I'm not quite sure why it's been cunning, but it is. How about that?
The last 10-year-old to win is Cool Dawn, and if
but he's a very young 10-year-old, as you can see.
No, but
Like
he'll surge late. What I'm thinking is he's going to come off the bridle down the hill, and Nico's going to keep persevering, and he and Hewitt will be the ones that will be surging. But ultimately, I think Paul Townend will sit in the first 3. Bar they go ridiculous. He's the strongest there, and he's the best horse in the race. Side note, if anybody wants like a bizarre outsider, Gentleman's Game, the horse, I know, Paul, you met him at Wetherby, didn't go your way that day. The rematch is on. Mouse Morris, I just have so much respect for the man. When he trained War of Attrition to win, he went from Christmas to the Gold Cup. This guy was schooling in Punchestown the other day. Darragh Keefe, I spoke to him afterwards. They're thrilled with the horse. This has been the target all year. He's going to be a crazy price, because I'd say he's Mouse's only runner, unless he runs Foxy Jackson across country. So he could be ridiculous money each way.
I like it. I think I remember that last year. You were asking Nicky, weren't you, last year? You said you wanted him to go for the Gold Cup. Is that right?
I think we said that 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? The fog of my memory is just kind of lifting slightly. But yeah, Jane, you knew. Okay, but is it?
No, it's easy. It's easy to be wise, and there's no pressure on.
Well, I know that's sofa trainers. What do you call it? Armchair trainers. But I think that's a good note on the Gold Cup discussion to open it up. Oh, here is Ed to a few questions. So if anyone doesn't mind sticking around for a little bit longer, hopefully we've still got lots of people tuned in, and we can pose a few questions for
firstly, one for Paul, who joined after I left. Paul, I don't know if you were reading the comments as you came in, but there was this wave of good feeling towards you for joining us on the back of what was going on in Ditch.
Yeah, and I need to go in a minute, Ed, because I want to go and join the team in the jelly. So,
if
you two questions and I'm ready to go.
Do we have a question for Paul? Yeah, we do actually. I can't remember who it was, so I apologise for that. Cheltenham finishes with a steep hill. Is there anything special about training a horse towards finishing on a steep hill? And your sort of gallops are. Is there a special way to train a horse for Cheltenham, or
not at all?
No, okay.
Not at all. You get. I mean, there are tools you've got to train in, whether you've got a hill or flat gallop. It was just a gain in fitness. The horses have obviously got their own ability. Whether you train them up a hill or on the flat, they'll either go up the hill or they won't.
And actually, a question for each of the three trainers, if you could all answer. This came from John Jones. When do you know that a horse is going to go to Cheltenham or not? Is there, the actual question goes, I would like to ask the trainers, when do they know if one of their horses is right for Cheltenham, and how long in advance, how long before do you know you're going to go to Cheltenham or not? Nicky.
Right. Well, I've always got an idea that really by Christmas you've probably got a pretty good idea, certainly with your novices. So let's just take the novice herders, the novice chasers. You've got a pretty good idea what's top class and what isn't, what's likely to go there. I think you've probably identified them by now. The handicappers, yeah, sure, they're all, a handicap is a handicap, whether it's at Cheltenham or Plumpton. You know where you stand. I think, we do have quite a lot of those that like to go to Cheltenham. And this is their hobby, it's their fun. Let's go. I mean, have fun. I'm of that opinion rather than, we've got quite a lot more runners. They're not what we call social runners. They've got their chances. But the graded race horses, we probably know by 1st of January what's in the ball game and what isn't. And they probably have identified targets on the way to how we get there. Handicappers know, just rock and roll and see who's up to it.
Excellent. Scoot, when do you know your horse to Cheltenham?
I think, I don't know, every time when it wins the novice hurdle at Hexham by 4 mile, by 4 lengths, I dream that it'll get to Cheltenham. But I'm rowing a different boat to Nicky and Paul. So you always hope that one will get there. They've got to be very good to win the condition races here. So they sort of tell you. Yeah.
Paul, you target Cheltenham slightly less, don't you? So I suppose we slightly covered it.
I'm not slightly less, Ed. It's just having horses that are good enough. There's no point going there with horses that aren't good enough. You have to be selective, and then you've got to dream all winter that the horses are good enough to run, have a good preparation. And basically, until the Monday beforehand, the Sunday when you start doing the declarations, you're not really sure. But the good horses stand out, and the ones that experience should tell you the ones that are good enough to go and the ones that aren't.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone one question, sort of an away game thing. So, Jane, what's your best English or British, since we've got some Scottish trainers here, what's your best British hope for the week?
Sergino, I think we're a very average bunch of juveniles over here, with maybe the exception of Marshborough.
Not being chased.
So Sergino for the triumph. In a handicap, I like No Ordinary Joe. If Nicky could give me a little bit of confidence behind the one that was second in the Martin Pipe last year, can he go one better this year?
Fair enough. Paul, I've got £5 left in the world. What am I going to back?
Stay away, pay.
Nicky, same question.
Ed, I've got to go.
Yeah, no, Paul, thank you so much. The rest of you
Paul.
Cheers, guys. Okay, everyone, have good luck next week.
Talk to you soon. Well done.
Thank you so much, Paul. Nicky, I've got £5 left in the world. I need to back an Irish horse.
You want to back an Irish horse?
Yeah, I've got to back an Irish horse. I've only got £5 left. I've got to pay my rent.
looks quite safe to me, I think. An Irish horse. The one we're all frightened of is Burbank. But I mean, he's going to be a shade of odds on probably whatever happens.
Yes, actually, you're right.
I'm gonna. They're all State Man and oh goodness, I'm back in Irish horse. I'm gonna still do Burbank. Yeah.
Burbank. David, yes. I've got £5 left in the world. I'll have £2.50 each way on something fairly long price, and I'll buy a copy of the Daily Mirror. Both.
I would probably look at another Willie Mullins winner, and that's Bialystock, who's got an entry in the county. One of the few things that went wrong for Clasutton at the DRF was when this horse was brought down in the handicap hurdle won by Lord Erskine, and he was still going really well. I think he's on the same mark here. He's a horse who's open to further improvement. He's owned by Rich and Susanna Ritchie, and I think that he could go well. I think he's I hope about 12 or 14s at the moment for the county. So if you had to have your £2.50 each way, I think I'd steer you towards Bialy stock. I hope I pronounced that horse's name correctly. Won't matter if it wins.
Scoo, what's my £5 winner, please?
Well, I'm disappointed. I'm hurt and offended that you even asked me.
As I said, I'm way out of my pay grade here, so this is.
I shan't tell the poor lady that you asked, but Apple will be most offended.
Well, I'm glad you said what I was thinking. So we've been asked such a lot of questions by people who clearly have shares in.
Absolutely no idea.
Well, that's it. Listen, I think we've kind of come to the conclusion. So there are 2 or 3 little parish announcements. Firstly, there are still some breakfast spaces available for Tuesday morning with Scoo and Lucinda, not Apple away herself, but there's a bunch of us going. Will Kennedy, Tom from Racing TV, can't remember his name, sorry. But if you want to come, please give us a shout. We've got another Zoom event on the 9th of April, which is an Aintree preview with Ruby Walsh, Mick Fitzgerald, Daryl Jacob and Lee Mosshead from the Racing Post. So if you enjoyed this, then come and watch Cheska handle that one, which would be great. And I guess the last thing for me to say is thank you very much, firstly, to the panel. So thank you very much, David. Best of luck with all your tipping and articles and everything next week. Nicky, the best of luck next week. Thank you very much. Scoo, we're going to win. We know, so that's fine.
We just don't know which race yet.
No, that's exactly. Well, details. I really can't wait. No, I don't have any opinion at all. As I said, I don't know anything. Jane, thank you very, very much. And if you want to come for that breakfast, we'd be absolutely thrilled. And Cheska, thank you very much for coming back. Thank you very much for hosting this. And just before I sign off completely, thank you very, very much, Simon Tufnell and JM Finn, for pulling all this together financially, because it does make it all work. So everybody, it's just good luck all round, isn't it? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Good luck next week, everyone.
Nice to see you. See you again
Thank you
soon.
so much.
See you,
Bye.
Scoo.